Hi everyone, hope you're well, and welcome to Northern Europe in the middle of summer. We're gassing on. We've got another guest joining us today. We've got Phil Dooley of Juta, the CAD engineer, designer, and he's going to give us some insights, hopefully on various aspects of gas protection and ventilation and structural elements of gas protection. So let's go over and find Phil and let's get gassing on. So, I've finally caught up with Mr. Phil. How are you, Phil?
Very well, thank you. Very well.
Oh, finally.
Walking in the sun with you is always a pleasure.
Well, here we are. We're going for a nice evening stroll. And it's great that my guests have come out and had a walk with me this evening. So, Phil, what I was going to ask you is, where have you come from, Phil? What have you done? Because I introduce all my guests with a bit of a bio. Where have you come from and what have you done? Tell me about yourself.
So I've always worked in the construction industry, but predominantly in the role as an architectural technologist. So graduated from uni, went and studied in Sheffield and worked in Sheffield, where everything, of course, is on a hill.
Right.
So I was quite early introduced to retaining wall structures, and part of my architectural roles then was around a bit of waterproofing detail. And so after about 8-9 years as an architectural technologist in various practices, I took a little step out of my comfort zone and kind of ended up in the world of specification sales with a waterproofing manufacturer. So
right, okay,
a
yeah.
bit of a different direction, but I felt like I had some really good transferable skills with my kind of knowledge and experience of sitting on the other side of the table, and I think it gave me a good bit of credence when I kind of met architects and engineers and was offering them advice that they kind of hopefully trusted me and my judgment quite well.
Right, excellent, yeah. So now, what's your role now? You're with Juta, aren't you?
So I am the technical manager at Juta now, so I tend to get involved gas and waterproofing at all various stages, from procurement, so initial kind of pricing exercises with contractors, to typical details, producing details, working with specialist installers to give them advice, working with architects and engineers, all the way through to supporting stockists really when they have queries about supplying their customers. So it's a really wide, varied role that I do at Juta, which is kind of part of the reason I love my job so much.
Yeah, well, great. Thanks for coming along for the stroll this evening. I never knew Blackpool had so many windmills as what's up here. It's unbelievable. So Phil, how's your walk going this evening? Enjoying it?
Been a very relaxing end to a very busy day. So.
Busy day, and I can see they're harvesting up here on the flatlands of wherever we are. Timbuktu, top secret location. So, but we're just having a look round the. It's nice though getting out, isn't it, Phil? Yeah?
Yes, yeah. We've been tied up on site all day, so thought rather than a couple of beers, we'll go for a walk instead.
Well, we've clocked up. I've done this with a few guests. How many steps have you done?
I've done about 22,000 so far today.
22,000. So let's just bring the camera back round. So 22,000 steps. That's a good talk, good walk.
Yeah,
so
my dog will not be happy that he's not joined us today.
Yeah. So going back to some of our technical topics, we've been doing a lot of technical talk the last couple of days, haven't we?
A lot of time together travelling, so
yeah,
a good chance to debate stuff.
Now, your colleague Patrick Flood did a very interesting webinar for the PCA a couple of years back now, I think it was, where he looked at the considerations of waterproofing and gas protection.
Yep.
What's your stance on this, Phil? Where do you see it? Is the CSSW the kind of way to go? Is that working well, or?
I think that there's a lot more complexities to gas than there is waterproofing. So I think while there are a lot of transferable skills in terms of installer level, of how the membranes are jointed, how we achieve really good seals and robust seals, I think that there's a lot of other kind of opportunities out there, in particular for a lot of the civil groundworks, containment engineering,
right,
who are more familiar with kind of heat welding some of these membranes, also have some very good transferable skills. So I think the gas protection industry does require some of these adjacent kind of developed areas of waterproofing and containment engineering to kind of step in and kind of upskill a little bit, I think.
We've just got a car coming by, so can't believe it. We're on this very quiet road. We'll just step in for a minute, let the car pass. There they go. So sounded like they got a bit of a flat tyre there, didn't it?
Yeah.
So
these dodgy roads.
Got a long road to drive. So verification of waterproofing and verification of gas, has that been a massive game changer, you think? Do we verify waterproofing?
To be honest with you, no, we don't see enough verification of waterproofing. I think we still see a lot of stock on, you're the membrane supplier, you need to come out to site and tell us if it looks okay.
Yeah.
So, and of course we always explain to people that we can comment on quality of installation, but we're not there 100% of the time. Ultimately, responsibility lies with the installer.
Yeah.
I think that there's a place for verification maybe for some installers that aren't really comfortable for giving installation warranties or full waterproofing guarantees. So I think there's an opportunity there for some verifiers if they wanted to kind of fill that gap in the market. But again, we're all very much of the same opinion at Juta that, specialist products, specialist installers is the best route for these type of products.
Excellent, yeah. Well, tomorrow, we've had a long day, as you say, Phil. Been a busy day, getting weary. We're nearly back at the digs for the night. Tomorrow, I've got a couple of questions on design and detailing. I know that's a pet subject. So
absolutely, we've got 2 hours in the train. So
so that's tomorrow's little venture. But no, it's been a really enjoyable walk, Phil. Cheers for that. So Phil, we're on the train this time, journeying on. So
planes, trains and automobiles.
It is, yeah. Well, it's been a great journey. So one of my other questions I was going to ask you is about the crossover, well, not necessarily the crossover, but the dividing line between design and detail in gas protection.
Absolutely.
Hot topic, difficult topic, challenging topic?
I'd say probably as a manufacturer it's one of the most difficult kind of discussions and topics that we tend to come across. One of my favourite questions to ask when I sit down at a design team meeting is, who's designer in the room?
Yeah.
I'd say 9 times out of 10 the response is, well, isn't it you? Isn't it Juta? So I think that we certainly kind of try to portray the right message about engaging appropriate consultants to do design and things like that. But I think as a manufacturer we tend to get dragged into this world of detailed design and detailing and we're the type of merge. So as you're well aware, as a manufacturer we have a really generous library of standard details, but the standard details are never quite what people expect or want.
Yeah.
So there's almost this onus on us as a manufacturer then to, well, can you tweak your standard detail to make it more like what we want, or can you do a detail like this for us as this is what we've got on site? And before you know it, we quite quickly get dragged in as part of the detailed design phase.
Yeah.
Now I think that we always want to help where we can. However, we can get involved in numerous projects where standard detail doesn't cut it and we can mark up 7 or 8 revisions of drawings because how fluid these construction projects are. Details change quite rapidly, and it can just become a real black hole for time as a manufacturer when we're just marking up numerous details. So I think for us as a manufacturer, I think understanding a clear line of responsibility for detailed design and detailing and how they merge and how they all go into the same construction drawings. I mean, it terrifies me when I turn up to site and see a standard detail and someone's working to our standard detail. It's not really what they're intended for,
Yeah. Well, also I think when you get the SI report, often there's a basic design in there where they give, like, they're going to put a membrane in, it's going to achieve 2 points. You're going to put a ventilated void in and you're going to achieve 1.5 points,
Yes.
And people assume that's the design as well. How do you feel on that side of things?
I think that is in principle an outline design. So I think it's fair enough if a geo-environmental engineer has assessed the project and said, look, according to BSA 485, you should be providing a point score of 3.5 through these 2 methods. So I think that is outline design, and again that is something that a geo-environmental consultant would be paid for to be commissioned to produce that information. But then the next step is the detailing stage,
yes,
where it's almost like we do it free of charge and we get heavily involved in the supply chain or part of the design team at that stage. I think our frustration is, as I said earlier, is the dynamic nature of these projects, that they change so rapidly that we can almost sometimes produce 7, 8, 9 overmarks for one particular area of a project because no one's quite sure what they're going to build it like.
Yeah.
And that can become quite frustrating for us when I feel like there's a lot of replicated, duplicated work of which the first 7 or 8 details are absolutely useless when it comes to the final end. So I don't know what the answer is. But I do think that if you imagine a Venn diagram where you've got detailed design and you've got detailing, I think at the minute they kind of work independently.
Yeah, they're not merging.
And I think ultimately, and again, geo-environmental engineers that offer this design often don't have the capabilities of the access to provide full working drawings with membranes on.
Right.
Because it's just a different field. So the onus really tends to fall back onto the engineers and architects who have the CAD capabilities or the drawing capabilities.
Yeah.
But then they're saying, well, it's not our responsibility because we're not the designer.
And I always look at the side of buildability as well, because it's the technicalities that go into that detailed design. Would you agree at that point?
Absolutely. I mean, again, there's some of my favourite meetings where you sat with a ground worker and an installer and you're saying, talk me through step by step, how do you see this being built?
Sequencing
and I would butt in at the appropriate times and go, that's the point where you can get that membrane in.
Brilliant.
So yeah, I really enjoyed that kind of problem solving element, which I think is where we've got a really good reputation. But yes, I think the key takeaway is standard details are not for use on construction sites.
Yeah.
They're for people to inform their details and their designs.
Brilliant. Excellent.
Thank you very much.
So, Phil, we've come to the end of the journey, and I think the train's about to leave. I hope that's not your train, is it?
No, I've checked 4 times.
Excellent. So, we've had this little adventure, been over in Europe doing some work.
Yep.
Back at home, looking at how the future of gas protection's going in the UK. Where do you think it's heading to, and what would you like to see, materialise?
I think the Building Safety Act's going to certainly put a bit of a spotlight on kind of a lot of specialisms within the industry. And I think there's going to be a real kind of push forward into qualified staff, experienced staff and things like that. So looking at people's baseline of knowledge, I think is going to be really important. So I think ultimately for everybody involved in the supply chain, whether you're manufacturers like ourselves, specialist installers, consultants, architects and engineers, are going to have to almost take a little bit more responsibility. I think we all were aware that gas and waterproofing in particular tend to be one of these things like a hot potato that gets passed around through everybody. It's not my responsibility. So I think we're going to have to try and use the Building Safety Act to clearly define levels of responsibility to try and just make the process a little bit more transparent in terms of construction supply chains.
Yeah, and do you think it's being misinterpreted as well, the Building Safety Act? Like people are saying, oh, it's all high-rise buildings.
It's completely open for debate at the minute, and I've seen loads of different views. We've looked at it ourselves. We've got a view that it doesn't explicitly cover gas membrane protection. So we would agree with some of the sentiments of that thing, because I think it is largely based around fire protection off the back of the Grenfell disaster.
Yes.
However, I think it's a really fair argument to say that there is a requirement for gas protection, because we're talking about keeping occupants safe for buildings.
Yeah, safety critical elements, isn't it? Yeah.
However, we have the view really that the building safety officers are the people that are determining whether these buildings are high risk or not. And what we don't want to fall into, I think, is this manufacturer-led train of telling everybody that your buildings are high risk and we're going to do it. I think we've seen what happened with Grenfell when we put onus on manufacturers to kind of lead these processes. So I don't always think that manufacturers are the best person to be making that decision. I think that it needs to be a bit more of a holistic view.
Yes.
And work in collaboration with everybody. So I see both sides of the argument, but I think that as it currently stands, I think gas protection isn't clearly defined yet in terms of where it sits. And I just think we need to be really careful that manufacturers aren't the people determining that your building is high risk, because we've got invested interest to sell gas membranes.
Yes.
So I think we need to be really careful about letting kind of manufacturers like ourselves go out and tell people your building's high risk, you've got to comply. Because then we're essentially taking the building safety officer's job away from them.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think it's going to rumble on. I think this is going to be debated over the next couple of years as it kind of develops into what I would say is Pandora's box. As it
is.
opens,
Well, it's still fairly new, isn't it? 2 years into the act, the legislation. So, Phil, it's been an absolute pleasure to spend a few days with you.
Likewise.
And the journey carries on. The road goes on forever, and the journey never ends. So we're going to leave Phil now, and we're just looking down the line here, and we've got a long journey ahead of us. We're going to meet some more guests on Gassing On in the next few weeks. So thanks very much. I'm going to ping Phil's details up on the screen there. So if anybody wants to contact him, any inquiries, technical issues they're talking about, I'm sure Phil will be more than pleased to meet with you or chat with you. So see you again next time.